Landis film from 1980 or 1981. It and The Howling came out very similar times, really. So it was like one was they were kind of made in unison, very similar times because Rick Baker was meant to do the effects on The Howling, but he very promised John Landis to do the effects for Werewolf in London, so he had to bring in Rick Baker for The Howling. And I can't remember which one he released first, but the funny thing is, after the competition, is both of them are viewed as really great werewolf movies. It's just like there's American Werewolf gets the edge because it's funnier, but both of them are viewed as high watermarks of the werewolf movie. Because I mean, these two plus Company of Wolves a few years later were kind of like peak werewolf. There was other films the same released when at the same time, like Wolfen, which came out and was okay. I enjoy Wolfen, but it's not amazing. There have been the Wolfman films in the past. You know, Hammer did a werewolf movie with Oliver Reed, which is name dropped in American Werewolf in London. And there's been werewolf films since then, but none have really come up to snuff compared to what the early 80s werewolf movies. So it's kind of a weird thing in werewolf movies, in the sense of they are kind of the B-level monster. Compared to Dracula and vampires and the zombies and Frankenstein, the werewolf's kind of in the level, it's just above the Mummy in a sense of it's something that you don't do first if you're trying to create a series of films, unless you're Universal, who started with the Mummy for their Monsterverse and it failed. But they come in a bit later when you went through your big guns. But the good thing, as you can see with some Mummy films and some werewolf films, is the fact they're not overused gives them a strength that. How many Dracula films have you seen? You know, many of them have been good. You know, like Universal did them good in the 30s. The 40s ones weren't so good. Obviously, Hammer knew how to do the vampire films and the Dracula films, but since then it's been hit and miss with Dracula. It really has been more miss than hit. They like the name more than they like the character, because the character's a villain and they try and make him romantic sometimes. That doesn't work so well, because he is a villain. He's a total villain. Werewolves, because it's basically like a Jekyll and Hyde thing of a split personality, werewolves work better than Jekyll and Hyde on screen. Jekyll and Hyde's always been a bit of a problem on screen. There have been good ones, but it's less used than a werewolf movie. Werewolf movies are a bit more fun, even though the lead character is always tortured. Now, Mike Nichols made Wolf in the 90s, and he said werewolf movies don't work because they're not a clear enough metaphor. That's wrong. He's just like hide the fact that his film didn't quite work as a werewolf movie. It worked as a satire, but it didn't really work as a werewolf movie because he wasn't comfortable with werewolves. Werewolves can work, but you have to really find what you're going to do with them. You can either do the subtle psychological thing, which is what they did in The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr., his idea of his fear of being a wolf. Or you can do the gory, funny version, which is what Joe Dante did in Howling and what John Landis did in American Werewolf in London. Or you can do the postmodern thing from Company of Wolves, which is all about female puberty. There's lots of things you can do with it. It's less locked down, though, than, you know, vampires in some ways. Although vampires have expanded quite a bit. And it's less... you can adjust it. It's a kind of myth that was made. There were werewolf ideas and myth, but a lot of it came from the movies, so it is a newer form of myth compared to Dracula and Frankenstein. And it just is it just has that kind of thing of it's malleable. So the one thing that American Werewolf in London does is the fact that it's a film that knows it's a werewolf film. It really is. I mean, I think this is the template for Deadpool movies. I think Deadpool took a lot from Werewolf in London. The idea of a film that's self-aware, but also tries to actually follow the rules of the genre while pointing them out and mocking them at times, but still follows them. This one actually is a very simple plot, but it expands it by having the self-awareness and having the love story and having the look at Britain and the whole idea of the lead character being Jewish and what a Jewish American experience is generally, plus being in Britain. So there's a lot there that is not to do with the werewolf that actually feeds into the story, which is what happens in a lot of genre stories, in the sense of the genre's the base, but then you can throw in lots of stuff that's maybe not fully tied to that, but actually enriches it. So that's what American Werewolf in London does, is the sense of it enriches the general basic plot. The general basic plot is guy goes with his pal onto the moors because they're doing a walking trip through Europe. They start off in Yorkshire, in which the pal played by Griffin Dunn is not very happy with. They get attacked after going to a pub which is filled with lots of British character actors who you recognise, especially Brian Glover and Rick Mayall. Then they go into the moors, they get attacked, Griffin Dunn dies, the other one, called David, he survives, but he has been bitten by the wolf. The wolf is killed during this attack, and then now David goes to London for medical treatment, and he finds himself in weird dreams, weird vivid dreams, which start off just going through the running through the woods. Then it becomes much more violent, and then it becomes a weird nightmare of his family getting murdered by zombie Nazis, which is a hilarious sequence. And it's just a sense of the kind of evil building within him. At the same time, he's fallen in love with his nurse, played by Jenny Agutter, and she's trying to treat him, but a lot of the first half is actually their relationship, and it's not like lovey-dovey, it's much more humorous and sweet, and she feels sorry for him, but she sees a decent guy, and when he leaves hospital, he goes and moves in with her, and it's the relationship's built up through that first half. There's also the investigation of what happened. He can't remember exactly what happened, but he's having these dreams. The police are investigating and no one's quite sure what happened. A lot of the details have been covered up, even to the doctor who's investigating. So the doctor who's at the hospital sees holes in the story, starts to investigate and starts to realise there's something weird going on. At the same time, David is starting to feel stranger and stranger, and eventually turns into a werewolf at a full moon and goes on a rampage. In this film, the werewolf part takes place over a few days. It's basically one werewolf attack, and then it's like kill yourself, and then there's a big finale werewolf attack. There's only like there's three werewolves in the movie. There's basically the opening scene where he's hardly seen. Then there's on the prowl where he kills quite a few people, and then the finale when he's attacked by the SAS, basically. So the limit of werewolf attacks, which is smart because one, it probably would cost a lot of money to go further, and two, you don't really need it if you've got the character stuff. That's the big problem nowadays in movies, is they've got the special effects, so they decide to have to throw the special effects at the screen. And in horror movies, that doesn't work. The horror movies, you have to actually like the characters for any of the horror to take effect. There's no point, and that's one of the reasons why like CGI horror, where they go crazy and they pace it all up, doesn't seem to work very well for an audience, because you actually do need to identify with people to feel fear. And CGI is kind of weightless, so you don't really feel that there's a physical object chasing anybody. So it means there's some part of your brain can't get scared. So this one is it's old school, makeup, rubber, special effects, and yeah, it's fake, but it's much more physical than what's CGI could do. And because you have to be much more careful how you shoot it and light it, what it means is you have to be very careful, and it's probably much more effective because you're keeping it to the essence of what you need. which is another thing with CGI is you can get away with much more show-offy shots, but they actually take away from the fear a lot of the time because it's like, that can happen in reality, and it's always pulling you out from any potential fear. So that's another big problem with CGI is that you can do too much, and that's why they had to do a massive werewolf sequence where he starts off as a human being and ends up as a wolf. And Landis, I think, wanted to see, can you do it in one shot? And it was like, nope, not a chance. So they do it in different shots, but it's very realistic how they do it. It feels very painful and it's horrible. And I think that sequence, the fact that it starts off with a person you like and it ends up in this wolf, makes the attacks, even though they're people you've never met before, and you don't get briefed. They've only the brief sketch of characters, because you know who the perpetrator is. It keeps emotional connection to the attack, so it's not just attacks. Like, you know it's coming, he's going to feel bad about it. So there's still story, even though there's lots of gore and it's funny. There's still a story beat to it, and there's still a human heart to it, which is what the film never loses. You've also got Griffin Dunn coming back as the zombie, telling David to kill himself because the curse of the people he kills can't end until the strain has ended. So he's got that. He's got the conscience of all these people he's killed, taunting them. But he still can't really kill himself because the act of doing it, he can't do it. So it becomes this situation of, well, how is it going to resolve? Of course, it's a werewolf movie. It has to resolve tragically. He has to die in front of his love. It's all that stuff, has to happen because John Landis knows that has to happen in a werewolf movie. And it works. That's the thing is, if you do it right, it works. And this one, they do it right. It's like the relationship between David and the nurse works. So when he dies, it's moving. But also you've got the humour about the British culture, the fact that at that time there was only 2 TV channels. There was nothing to watch. It was a culture that was very much inward looking, and lots of shots of people playing darts in a pub and on TV. It's a culture that was just about to change quite a lot, but hadn't done it yet. This was just before Thatcher came out. Well, I think it was released with Thatcher had come in, but it was shot just before. So this was the end of the 70s, basically. And you've also got the idea of, this is a Jewish guy, and John Landis is Jewish, and they have the whole idea of, just the idea of what it's like wandering in a foreign country, when you've got this other culture that, Jewish culture spread throughout the world, and there's never any sign of like anti-Semitism. There's a few jokes here or there, but it's just a sense of it's what's it like at that time for someone who's Jewish going through different cultures, and there's a kind of Jewish humour between him and his pal Griffin Dunn, they do have a nebbish side to them, even though they're kind of popular in some ways as well. It's just a sense of what the culture's like internally, how they talk to each other, which makes it really interesting. And you see a lot with family and dream sequences and things. So there is that element that floats through, but it's not overdone. It's just like, that's a nice touch. Haven't seen that in a horror movie. Usually it's stiff English guys or Lords of the Manor who become werewolves. It's never usually just this ordinary guy, which is what the thing this film does really well, which is what would happen to an ordinary person who had that. And the fact is, during the late 70s, it's got the thing that was popular then was, well, no one would believe you if you said you were a werewolf or a vampire. No one would believe you. Everyone's seen those movies, they think it'd be stupid. And that's the film uses, really, is that, yeah, they would. And that's what makes it, takes people a lot longer to actually realise it actually happened in front of them. There's a fun sequence to the end in a porno theatre where the porno's terrible and ridiculous, and Landis a lot of fun with how terrible the pornos were at the time. I mean, there's a werewolf attack in a porno theatre, which is something you never realise you wanted to see, but when it happens, like, oh, that's hilarious, that's really good. You also have a werewolf going through Piccadilly Circus, going mad in that, and lots of deaths ensue. Not just by the werewolf, also just by chaos involved. Landis loves chaos. When something goes wrong, chaos ensues, and he loves the chaos. So yeah, it's a wonderful film. It holds up really well. You can get it in most places. I mean, there's a Blu-ray, there's a 4K. It's available streaming. It's a really good watch for the Halloween period because it is funny and it is scary, and it just works. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm trying not going for too long with this one because a lot of you probably seen it already. So enjoy. Go watch it or go rewatch it. It's worth it.